Hi, it's Dwyer, gamblersadvisory.com, DwyerVIP.com. Remember, the opinion you should follow should be your own. Just consider this video to be a second opinion from a complete stranger online. Before I get into this Orlando Salido Mikey Garcia fight, which just ended a few moments ago, let me just mention that I'm going to be in Las Vegas walking around trying to watch these conference championships in the NFL tomorrow. If you see me and you recognize me, just feel free to walk right up to me and say hi. We can talk boxing for a couple of minutes. Okay, let's talk about these fights. You know, it's really easy for me to come on here after a right pick and say, hey, I got this pick right. Right? The hard part are nights like this where, you know, I expected Orlando Salido to walk through Mikey Garcia. Right? Even now, I'm not as impressed with Mikey Garcia as they are at Mikey's channel, HBO. Right? But I have to concede that Orlando Salido did not walk through Mikey Garcia. He did not even get the win. Nor, unfortunately for me, did Mikey Garcia get the knockout. Right? So it's a double loss unless you took the hedge I recommended on Dwyer VIP. And even there, you know, the under 9.5 straddled against Orlando Salido to win the fight. Even there, you didn't win any money. You actually lost on the Orlando Salido side, and you likely got a refund back from your casino as the fight did not go 9.5 rounds. Now, let me just say this. Mikey Garcia won the fight. I'm not here to say otherwise. It was an accidental headbutt. That's true. I'm not contending otherwise. Right? Mikey Garcia got several knockdowns in the fight. Again, I'm not contending otherwise. By the start of the 6th round, even I, an Orlando Salido supporter, knew that he needed a knockout to win the fight. But let me say this. Look at the CompuBox numbers. You're going to see that Salido threw more punches. You still had a third of the fight left to go. Salido's best rounds were the rounds immediately preceding the end of the fight. Even the headbutt takes place with Mikey Garcia's backup against the ropes. If you're an Orlando Salido fan, you know that Salido's calling card is his ability to turn a fight in his favor and then take care of business in the later rounds. Here you had an entire third of the fight left. More importantly, you had a young guy in front of him who quite frankly hadn't fought close to his level of opposition. Understand, Salido's not only fought Robert Guerrero, Yorkis Gamboa, Juanma twice. He's held his own in those fights, beating Guerrero, knocking down Gamboa before losing, and beating Juanma twice. So we were heading into what they call the championship rounds, and quite frankly, I thought it was obvious. I'm going to disagree with Andre Ward, who I consider to be a great fighter, who was one of the analysts on HBO. But I'm going to disagree with him because I thought it was obvious that Mikey Garcia could not fight inside. In fact, when Salido got inside, Mikey Garcia did an Ali trick. He held him, right? Mikey, you saw when he hurt Salido earlier, he wouldn't jump inside and throw short punches. This wasn't David Haye against Enzo Maccarinelli. This was a different type scene where Mikey Garcia needs 2 feet to throw hard punches. Right, literally 2 feet. The only punch he's able to throw with power inside of 2 feet that I saw was the uppercut that he threw. I thought it was the best punch in the fight that dropped Salido. Right, but make no mistake, you could draw a circle around Mikey Garcia. Mikey Garcia needs about 2 feet to land power shots. Orlando Salido figured that out. Orlando Salido is adaptive reactive. Contrary to what they're saying on HBO about this is a technician against a pressure fighter, actually, Orlando Salido is a technician in his genre. So he was getting inside. Mikey Garcia was getting tired. We still had several rounds to go in the fight, right? All I'm saying is this is boxing. It's not track and field where a guy jumps out and he's able to coast to a win. This is a sport where I can be getting dropped in a fight. If I'm still lucid and you run out of gas, boxing has many fights where guys have just run out of gas late in fights. If you run out of gas and you have a hard time dealing with me on the inside, you could lose the fight. Let's also talk about Mikey Garcia's punching power. There's different types of punching power. When Mike Tyson knocked you down or Fernando Vargas knocked you down, you were hurt. I mean, just take a look at Trevor Burbeck trying to look tough getting off the canvas after Mike Tyson knocked him down. Trevor Burbeck couldn't even stand upright. He was staggering around the ring. Right? You were hurt. Is that Mikey Garcia's power? Several of these knockdowns look like Salido's knee just hit the canvas. He was knocked down. I'm not saying legally it's not a knockdown. But Salido was able to then get up, and you knew, even before the referee came over to talk to him, you knew he was lucid. Right? These are the kind of flash knockdowns. They're knockdowns. But the first two, Salido's gearing off Garcia's right hand, which is a big right hand. He gets caught with left hooks. It's really more a B slap to the canvas, right? He hits the canvas, he looks up, it's like, whoa, did he just hit me flush with a left hook? And then he gets up and he's ready to continue. So all I'm saying is the fight was just getting interesting when it got stopped due to an accidental headbutt. I feel the same way about this fight that I felt about Chad Dawson, Jean Pascal, right? Where you saw Dawson in a position to probably do damage. You noticed that his opponent, who was ahead, was out of gas or was losing gas. You wondered what was going to happen the rest of the fight. The only difference is, in this fight, you had several rounds to go. You had a third of the fight to go. And so, let me also say too, HBO falls in love with fighters. I know the Mikey Garcia story is a great one. His grandfather was a trainer, or rather, his father's a trainer. Robert is a trainer, and he comes from a fighting family, and he knows a lot of people and grew up in the sport and stuff like that. That's all fine and dandy. But come on, this is boxing. Tell me about dude in the ring. I don't want his full biography, right? I don't want to even hear that he's a great guy who does things for charity, right? Tell me about his game in the ring. And when a guy is missing an inside game, when he drops a guy multiple times and is unable to take that extra step forward and open up close, and when all they can say on HBO is what Max Kellerman said after the fight, saying, this fight wasn't close. Keep in mind, 4 rounds left in the fight. Salido actually throws more punches than Mikey Garcia. This fight wasn't close. Who would want to see this fight again? Look, let me raise my hand. I would. Right? Do you really feel that Orlando Salido would be that nonchalant early in the fight to get knocked down twice from milquetoast left hooks? I mean, not only that, Salido knows he can take Mikey's power. Does Mikey know what he can do if Salido continues to get inside? Do we know with confidence what would have happened the last 4 rounds of that fight? Let me just say, I was expecting a stoppage. It could have been for Mikey Garcia. Lord knows he was knocking down Salido. It could have been Salido because Garcia had never been tested late in a fight. Certainly not by an opponent of this magnitude. Right? So all I can say is I encourage people to watch the fight. Let's talk about the Gennady Golovkin, Gabe Rosado fight. Let me just say this. Gennady Golovkin got the KO, as we called, but, and there's always a but, right? Golovkin's hyper aggressive. He's constantly trying to cut off the ring. He's constantly coming forward. Now, when you go up against a fighter like that, you have to be able to do one of two things. You either have to be able to clinch, like Mikey Garcia did against Orlando Salido. Tie the guy up, step forward, he's constantly coming forward, you step forward and you tie the guy up. Or you have to be able to do what Floyd Mayweather and others do. Stand your ground. Don't back up. Don't be running along the ropes. Stand your ground. Force the aggressive guy to run into your shoulder while you're hiding your head in the middle of the ring. Think Pernell Whitaker against Chavez Sr. Think Floyd Mayweather against Oscar De La Hoya and Ricky Hatton. Right? Let me also point out that if you know a guy is constantly coming forward, right? If you know he's constantly coming forward, then you've got to make him pay on the way in. Have him walk into a jab, right? Throw check left hooks, like Floyd did to end the Ricky Hatton fight. You've got to land something as the guy is coming on the way in, or you have to tie the guy up, right? You certainly have to have the guy realize that just because he's pursuing you doesn't mean you're going to run, whether or not you're throwing punches back, right? Take a look at the Carlos Baldomir Floyd Mayweather fight. You know, Floyd stands his ground. In fact, Shane Mosley, Floyd Mayweather, right? Floyd's hurt and stuff like that, but notice Floyd stands his ground, has Mosley run into his shoulder. Floyd, even when hurt, doesn't run in that fight. Here, Gabe Rosado was trying to move the entire fight. He was trying to fight what I call an Andre Durrell type of fight. That doesn't work against a guy like Golovkin, who is always on his front foot and who has one-punch knockout power with both hands. Let me also point out, too, Golovkin knocks you out. He doesn't stun you. You don't hit the canvas fully conscious, looking up and saying, oh, man, was I foolish and reckless coming in? Let me get up. Let me talk with the referee. Let me continue the fight. You don't have that luxury most of the time against Gennady Golovkin. He hits that hard. You saw how hard he hit by how he busted up Gabe Rosado's face, right? And so I thought Gabe Rosado fought the wrong fight, right? Even Ali, the rope-a-dope against George Foreman. Ali didn't run from Foreman because that would have tired him out. That also would have made him lose every round. You wouldn't want Foreman on his front foot while you're just running away like Gabe Rosado ran away. What Ali did was he set up shop on the ropes, had a guard up. As Foreman came in, he would hit Foreman with some shots. Then he would cover up when Foreman threw hooks, right? All I can say is I know Gennady Golovkin looked dominant in this fight. He's going to run into a guy who can just tie him up when he comes inside, and you're going to have a different dynamic in the fight. I'd love to see Golovkin against Sergio Martinez. I don't know who wins that fight, but I do know that Martinez wouldn't look like Gabe Rosado did here. Let me also say this too. I know Rosado's corner loves him, right? I'm sure they stopped the fight. They threw in the towel with the best of intentions. I'm sure in doing so, they lengthened his career because Golovkin was completely lucid, Rosado was bleeding. But this is boxing. The stoppage was premature. Understand, the doctor looked at Rosado's cut and vetted the cut. Right? The cut wasn't lethal. The doctor looked at it. The doctor said green light. Right? Rosado also is defending himself. You saw him after the fight. He's talking. He had never been knocked down in the fight. More importantly, Rosado entered the fight with an almost 50% knockout ratio, and he actually caught Golovkin. Golovkin admitted it. Golovkin in the post-fight interview actually admitted that he got hit with what he called a lucky punch. Well, all I'm saying is this is boxing. You can win a fight on a lucky punch, right? Unless Gabe Rosado had a cut that prevented him from continuing, think Vitaly Klitschko against Lennox Lewis, or unless Rosado, couldn't defend himself, was reeling around the ring, was getting battered, was, hitting the canvas or was close to hitting the canvas and was getting completely humiliated, unless one of those scenarios was present, then the fight shouldn't have been stopped. We've seen far worse in the ring. I was a bit amazed at the commentary on HBO, and I was a bit amazed at the mic in Rosado's corner when, the corner man says to Rosado's father, "I have to stop the fight." What sport did that guy think he's in? Yeah, the action in the ring was violent. No question about it. But Rosado's cut had already been cleared. I thought that was an overreaction by the corner man. I'll give Rosado credit for being a gentleman after the fight. I know in the back of his head, he himself is thinking, man, I'm lucid. I'm fighting Gennady Golovkin. There are questions about Golovkin's stamina. Golovkin barely beat Kasim Oma, right? Looked a little bit tired late in that fight. Keep in mind, the one thing we know Gabe Rosado had done was survive until that round. In boxing, you don't have to win on the scorecards to win a fight. You could win by KO, by stoppage, right? The other guy could get tired. Research John Tate against Mike Weaver, right? So all I'm saying is, just because a guy is far behind, as long as he's defending himself, as long as the doctor vets the cut, I don't see why you would stop the fight. Let me talk about the most impressive performance of the night that I saw. It was Kovalev, the guy who beat Gabriel Campillo. Right? Now, I didn't say anything about that fight here online, but I was very interested in that fight. And let me just say, Kovalev, mid-range hooker, throws very short punches, kind of like Tavares Cloud. Right? But what I like with him, the difference between him and Cloud, was when Campillo blocked the hooks. That was Campillo's game. He came in, he was prepared to block the hooks. Kovalev then went to his ribcage. That's the secret in the fight. He hits him with a left hook to drop him, right? Campillo gets off the canvas. Then, as Kovalev comes in and starts throwing shots up top, and as Campillo blocks the shots, Campillo has him blocked. Campillo doesn't fight with a lean. His body's exposed. He's kind of like Brian McGee, who just lost to Mikhail Kessler. So Kovalev then goes to the body, devastating puncher. Devastating. I mean, Campillo couldn't take the headshots. He couldn't take the body shots. This is a guy who not only went the distance against Tavares Cloud, I thought he beat Cloud by a few rounds. He couldn't take Kovalev's punch. Kovalev is a huge puncher. I believe he's put the light heavyweight division on notice. I'd love to see Kovalev against Nathan Cleverly or Jean Pascal. I think those would be very interesting fights. Okay, let me also say this too. I'll say it in closing. Rocky Martinez against Burgos. I know they call that fight a draw. right? I don't know whether it was a draw or not, because for several rounds I was actually watching the Kovalev Campillo fight. There were multiple fights on multiple stations, and I'm making this video the night of the fights, right? Well, what I can tell you is, from the portion of that fight that I saw, while Martinez is a overachiever, works really hard, has a lot of volume, I thought what Burgos was doing, from my perspective, was much more special, much more meaningful. Burgos is an elite body puncher. I mean elite. And what I like is he hides his head, he throws body punches. It's hard to figure out the angles because the punches are long. So you don't know whether the punches are going to the body or the head. And what I liked is he made Martinez pay when Martinez came inside. He wasn't even concerned with Martinez's volume. He was just placing great body shot after great body shot, right? I think he is the harder matchup for most opponents going forward, right? I believe he has a technique thing going on, whereas Martinez has a youth volume thing going on. In other words, once Martinez's volume slows down as he gets older, and remember what I've said, the only unbeaten champ in boxing is Father Time long term, right? Once Martinez slows down a little bit, I think it's back to earth for him. Whereas this Burgos guy looks like he could beat most people, right? He's a tough style matchup. If you're fighting him, even with straight punches, you're going to have to find a way to block his looping body shots. And he's very accurate with it. It's like a curveball pitcher. He's very accurate with it, and it's very hard to figure out the angles, right? From what I saw, and granted, I only saw the last few rounds of that fight, I thought Burgos was out maneuvering, out thinking Rocky Martinez. I think he's a tougher matchup. Anyway, let me hear from you. Let me, in particular, hear from the Mikey Garcia crowd. This is your moment. Go ahead and preach. Tell me where I was wrong. Tell me why your guy, who is still unbeaten and who now has a belt against a guy with a win over a guy I consider a master, right? And he did win the fight tonight, obviously, right? By a wide margin. Tell me why your guy is the future of boxing, like they were saying here on HBO. I think Andre Ward called him the real deal. Also, tell me why I'm wrong when I say that he can't fight inside, that he's a left hook, straight right hand, uppercut guy. I was impressed with the uppercut. I didn't expect the uppercut. I'll be blunt with that. But he's a guy who he's not really able to fight inside. You know, Carl Froch has a good jab, has a good left hook, has a good uppercut, has a good right hand. But when you get inside on Carl Froch, he can also throw hooks. He's also a mid-range hooker up close. I didn't see that with Mikey Garcia. Am I right or wrong about that? Share some knowledge with all of us. Thanks for watching. Hope you visit us at gamblersadvisory.com and on Roku, Dwyer Boxing private channel. Take care.